Hello there. It's great to see you guys. I am Cece Shatz, and you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Business Showcase, and we are really pleased to have you guys here with us today. Let's do a little homework before we start. Those of you that don't know me, I'm the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I'm also the president of Going Solo Network, Inc., and our website is goingsolonetwork.com. We have everything on there. We're a complete singles network, and we're growing leaps and bounds, and I'm excited about all that's happening. But our media platform is right above here. It's goingsolomedia.com, and that's where we have all of these wonderful, great shows that we broadcast here with you, both live and then on our live streaming radio station. So let's get on with the business at hand, right? Because we only got a lunch hour to cover, and we've got a lot that we're going to be doing. We've got a wonderful guest here with us. Let's bring him right up. His name is Randall. Randall, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Cece. Hi,
Great
everyone.
having you. It's great having you. Now, Randall Boston, you are a financial planner, and our topic today is going to be financial planning before and after divorce. So welcome again to the show. And I know you're located right here in our Tampa Bay area, aren't you?
Yes, I am, definitely.
Yeah, so it's nice to have someone from my own hometown. So it's nice to be able to showcase you and our beautiful city. So let's talk a little bit about you and your journey and what is a financial planner. A lot of times people get a little bit, we have CPAs, we have other people in the financial industry. They're not quite sure what a financial planner is. So number one, tell us your journey of what made you decide to go into this particular line of work, and then kind of define what a financial planner is, what they do.
Sure, definitely. And it's been an interesting journey for me. At least I think that way. So if I go too long on this, tell me. But so where my journey really began was in the military. I came up to Florida originally from the Virgin Islands to join the Florida Air National Guard here in Tampa. And I did so and became a satellite communications specialist. And I left the military and took a civilian position overseas in Iraq and in Afghanistan at one point as well. And during that time, I looked around and I just saw a lot of people that were on their fourth and fifth marriages, to be honest with you, at that point in time. And I kind of understood, by not really having much time to come home and be with my family and my own wife at the time, I kind of understood how that came to be eventually. So I really knew that I needed to make a change from that profession. And I came back to Florida, came back to Tampa, and I knew that if I didn't change industries completely, Cece, that honestly, I was just going to end right back up over in Iraq and Afghanistan with all of the consequences that come along with that as well. Right. But one thing that I really learned while I was over there was there were a lot of people that had a lot of income, and they had an opportunity that really you couldn't get here in the States, right? They were making 3-4 times the amount of money that they would make because they were working in a war zone. And they were coming back to the States without anything to show for it, really. So as I transitioned back and I was looking for what it is that I really want to become, I found a sales organization that was in the financial services industry. But over time, I just kind of learned more about what financial planning is. And I thought back to those days when I was overseas and seeing people make terrible decisions with their money. And I wasn't in a position really to help them outside of, friendship in general. And I kind of saw myself now having the opportunity to be able to help someone. So once I understood what financial planning really is, it just suited me very well. So I'll stop there and pause for any questions before I keep going.
No, I tell you, it's amazing what you were saying about the servicemen and women. And thank you so much for your service. We totally appreciate that, and we want to recognize that. But, I never thought about them having like a nest egg of money, which I guess they probably would because they are getting paid while they're there. And so to come back into the States and then, get into the environment of living again, but while they're gone, it's probably a smart thing to do some financial planning, some financial investments.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's a smart thing to bring forward. But I know that the, in the service, the divorce rate is very high. And that's you're right. It's because people travel, they're away from their families. It's a very strenuous and difficult time for those to be away. um, then the pressure of being gone and worrying and all of that. So it does cause an additional stress on people. So
Definitely.
when we're talking about, doing some, financial planning, when we're stepping forward into, a separation of some sort, are there particular advices or any suggestions that you can give people, like when they're starting to look at their, their financial assets and things like that? Are there any things that you can kind of give them, some tips on?
Yeah, absolutely. And to really answer that precisely, I'll actually step back and talk about what financial planning really is, and probably what it isn't as well.
Yeah, that's a
So
good idea. Yeah.
I do believe that in a general sense that all of us are financial planners, right? Everybody has something going on in their head, whether they put it down on paper or not, as far as how they feel about money, what goals they're trying to accomplish. Some of us have the view where we want to squirrel away every single dollar that we have for some point in the future for a rainy day, but that may or may never come. Others feel like we need to seize the day and kind of just enjoy life while we have it. I kind of fall into that first boat of, if you give me the opportunity, I won't spend anything at all. And my wife kind of balances us out, right? So that we can make sure we enjoy life as well. So to some degree, I think that everybody has some kind of a plan. The real question becomes, well, how solid the plan actually is. So I'll say that many people seek financial planning advice from somebody successful that they know, right? That's the first place you go. Hey, what are you doing about this? How are you handling that? And the problem that you really run into is, even though somebody's extremely successful, the methods that they're using to handle their finances may not be appropriate for you and your situation. So in explaining what really I believe financial planning is, it's really a matter of a process, but also a partner that you have that you can go to, that understands how to apply all of the different methods and strategies to your specific situation. As I think about professions that could be replaced, at some point I think every profession, all of our professions may be replaced, right, because of technology. But I think about the fact that right now anyone can go and Google, how do I handle this particular financial situation? How do I save? What kind of account do I use? What do I do about these tax situations? The real problem is that if you go on Google and you actually start to search for that, you have so many different opinions and they're actually conflicting with one another. So it really leaves you even more stressed out and not knowing what you actually need to do for your situation. So I feel like that's what financial planning is. It's that about having that partner that understands what you're trying to accomplish and can build a road and a pathway for you to get there.
Yeah.
And it's also a process, right? It's a partnership. We're working together. It's a matter of identifying goals and revisiting the goals, monitoring the plan, and making sure that we're doing all the things that you need to do. So there's some accountability to that as well in the process.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that at the beginning, when you're stepping forward and you kind of don't know what to do, like a lot of partners, one partner will handle the finances and the other partner kind of handles the everyday running of the house, a family, or whatever. Then when they're no longer together, then the partner that didn't handle the finances is going, oh my gosh, now what do I do? And so starting to get to with someone like you and start to put together kind of a roadmap of what it is that and I love what you said there, of what you want to accomplish, because we are all at different maybe stages within our lives, we're each, and I know we were talking beforehand, before the show, is that, each individual, their financial situation is different, right? And so we can't put it in a cookie cutter type of mold. So someone like you can kind of really sit down and say, okay, what is your goal? This is how many more working years you have left, or maybe you are retired now, and let's look at the finances of how much you have, that's going to carry you through. And so you can look at each person separately, and that takes definitely some time. So I guess what I'm thinking is, like, the very first meeting they have with you, probably one of the first steps is gathering up their paperwork, right? Kind of getting together so they can determine what they do have as to start financing, doing some financial planning, right?
Definitely. Gathering paperwork. I'll tell you what. In my practice, one step, the first step that I really take is a conversation. I used to make sure that clients bring me as much information as they possibly can, but I didn't really have much success with that. What I found success with is having that initial conversation. Just be like, no work involved in it. Just a down to earth conversation with what you're really trying to accomplish. And then we start looking at your situation over. So it's more about me understanding what's in your mind versus what your actual current financial situation is on, in black and white at initially.
Yeah. So laying out that groundwork, starting to put that path together, make it a little bit clearer, because that's true. When you first have a meeting with someone, number one, you don't know if you're going to connect, right? So
Sure.
there has to be a connection. If you're going to have somebody, and I know I feel this way, if I'm going to have someone handling my money, I'm going to feel comfortable with them. I'm going to like them. I'm going to know that they have integrity. And of course, your company's name is Boston Integrity, which is a great name. But you want to know that. You want to feel comfortable with that person. So I think that is great to be able to sit down, take a few minutes, get to know each other, and then start kind of going into, because you might not know at the very beginning what it is that you want to accomplish.
For sure.
You have children in school or you don't have children in school. I mean, there's so many different facets with regards to our finances. So sorting that down, coming up maybe with a list, and then helping them figure out what kind of paperwork they're going to need. If they don't know where they're at with their finances, how you can direct them with that.
Exactly.
That's a great.
And one thing, to give you a little perspective on, who I'm normally working with as well, because you mentioned before that, often in a relationship, there's one person that handles everything and there's the other person that doesn't. I'll say that a large portion of my clients are usually the person that doesn't, they're the ones that's seeking out the advice, especially after a divorce. That's the person that normally comes out and say, hey, I need help. So practically, from a practical matter, it's really hard to tell somebody, hey, can you gather all of these documents, when one, they don't understand why they need to do it, or it doesn't seem that important. And now it just seems like this added burden for no reason. So being able to sit down with them, really understand their goals, discuss what they're trying to accomplish, and explain to them, okay, well, hey, here's the information I'm going to need from a reasonable standpoint to understand your situation and make some recommendations going forward. That's why that success rate kind of went up for me, because it gave me that opportunity to have that conversation and really explain the process to them and get them comfortable with, like you said, with me as well as a person.
Yeah. Then also I was thinking about, when we get divorced, sometimes we don't really know where our income is going to come from. It's starting to get established or whatnot. So sitting with you and then trying to go through some of those areas is a good idea to kind of establish what is your income. Where are you going to your income going to come through, and what additional funds do you have after you paying the necessities do you have for financial investments, those kind of things.
Definitely. So, especially like in the period prior to a divorce, where everything's still happy, we've kind of come, I don't want to say happy, but we've come to the agreement that yes, this divorce is going to happen. But, we're still on good enough speaking terms where we're trying to work together to come to a solution here. During that phase is really when I feel like a lot of people need to sit down, especially the person, once again, that doesn't handle finances. That's when they really need to sit down with someone like myself. Because what they really need to understand is what that income and what that situation is going to look like post-divorce. So what I've seen people really run into the problem of is that they go to an attorney, and the attorney is having a conversation with them, and they're really setting their expectations off of, hey, I want as much as I can get, or as much as is entitled to me, right? But secretly, I really don't know if that's even going to be enough for my lifestyle. Like, I have no idea what my lifestyle is going to look like and what this is going to mean for me in numbers. And the problem is, in many cases, the attorney might not know either. That's not really their role there, right? Even if they get you everything that you would like, it might be enough or it might not be enough. So where someone like myself can really come in is helping that person start to rebuild their life after the divorce without even getting to that point yet. being able to project what expenses are going to be there that you might not have even considered yet, and then what opportunities for incomes are there. If I'm dealing with someone that, hasn't had to necessarily work for the last 10, 15 years, what job opportunities are there? How much income can they be really realistically expected to earn on their own? And once again, will it be enough with all of the other, judgments that come out of the divorce to sustain their lifestyle? That's the anxiety I feel like somebody's walking into a divorce with. And I feel like my job is, to the best of my ability, to lower that level of anxiety and stress that's associated with that.
Yeah, that's a great advice. That's something I hadn't thought about when I was going through my divorce, which I think is an excellent idea, is to meet with someone like you, and you can kind of not only plan out what your needs are going to be when you get divorced, but also you want to continue saving for retirement. That needs to be a bucket. How you have money put in different buckets, that needs to be a bucket that you are putting money into, because at the end of the day, you're going to reach retirement age, and is social security going to help you? Will it be there? We don't know. So you want to start preparing for this, or you have children that you're going to be, that's education funds and things like that, and who's going to contribute to those. So the financial planning of all of that individually, and then looking at it from a family perspective, is also is continuously important. So it's a great idea to be able to come together and discuss these things before a decision is made, before an agreement is made, because it's harder to change that. It can be changed, but it's harder to change that going down the road.
Absolutely. Definitely.
It's going to cost money to do that. So I think you're so right on that. I like the idea too that you had said about what vehicle to invest your monies in, depending upon your needs. Like I know that there's investments that are a little bit more secure. You don't make quite as much money. And those are kind of geared for people that are looking for long-term kind of investments. And then there's investments where, it's very risky, and your return may be very good, but can you do that? And so I like the idea that there's different vehicles for us. And how on earth are we going to know, the layman, on what they are? And so I thought that was an excellent point that you brought up. So there's probably thousands, aren't there?
Yeah, there's tons of options, and that's what makes it even more difficult. But I'll have to step back and say, Cece, it sounds like you're doing some financial planning there, and you're ready to join our industry yourself.
Well, I don't know about that. I'd like
to. But yeah, there's so many different options. I don't know how anyone's expected to know. I had a client that basically made a joke, and he said that the government should have a department of ignorance, and he feels like I'm filling that department for them, because it's just like there should be some place that really explains all of this. It almost seems intentionally difficult, to be quite honest. And it's great, I feel like, as an industry, not just myself and my business, I feel like it's great to have an industry that you really could turn to for advice in these situations. So that's why, from my perspective, the financial planning industry is definitely a noble one.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many changes too in the law. There's so many different things that are happening, each and every year. And that might even have to work together with taxes, with the tax person, those kind of things. So you really kind of want to build your own financial team, don't you?
Absolutely, definitely. And that's what's interesting, right? You run into this like conundrum where people might think that they're not wealthy enough to have a team, because they're worried about the cost of this. And, obviously all these people are here to make money, so I don't think I can afford it. Sometimes you have to consider the cost of, not really having a team, the cost of not knowing what you're getting involved in. But I'll say, from a reasonable expectation, it's really not that costly to have these advisors in your life. And in most cases, it's quite affordable to do it. So I would say it's always worth at least seeking out the advice, and even if it's sitting down with someone for a free consultation. So, going through the divorce process, in many cases, people are going to hire an attorney. but they may not consider the tax ramifications of certain decisions that they're making. They might not consider the long-term financial ramifications of what they're considering as well. So I think it's at least worthwhile to sit down with somebody from these various professions to kind of explore what your options are and how you could potentially work with them. And what you'll probably find is a lot of different professionals that are willing to, even if it doesn't make sense for you to work with them directly, they're willing to at least point you in the right direction and say, hey, you want to avoid this hill, but if you take this path, it'll take you to safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great advice, because you never think, and I love that too, that, and I was probably one of them too at the very beginning, thinking, oh, I don't have any money, so well, I got to talk to somebody about this, and that would be kind of a waste of their time, waste of my time, but the reality was it was fear, right? Because I faced a great deal of fear after my divorce, and finances was one of those fears. And so if you don't mention it, you don't deal with it, it's just something you can just bury in the sand. But the reality is it costs you a lot of money to do that. You can't, finances, you really need to look at straight, dead straight, and be able to, realize where you're at, whatever it is, and then start putting a plan together to create a path that's going to get you to whatever your goal might be. And then having someone like you to help you set those different goals, create those different patterns in your life to be able to achieve those things is a wonderful thing. So yeah.
I really, really love what you just said. As far as like looking something straight in the face, essentially, right? There's a lot of things in life where if you kind of ignore it, it kind of goes away to some degree. With finances, it tends not to be the case, So sometimes, as difficult as it may seem, taking that time out of your busy life, taking the time away from the things that you would rather be doing, and just looking your financial situation dead in the face, it's worthwhile. Usually it ends with you feeling a lot more relieved. It starts off with a lot of stress in some cases, but it definitely ends with you being more relieved. So working with a professional, they're going to hold you accountable for that, right? You're going to get a call from an office that says, hey, listen, guys, we need this time for us to have this quarterly meeting or whatever it is, where you have to look the situation dead in its face. But in most cases, we don't like put you in this stressful situation and say, hey, well, now you're on your own, right? We're there to really walk you through it and bring that anxiety level down. Like, we're human beings dealing with our own finances as well, right? I am anyway. So I completely understand what it's like to be put in a situation you have to think, like, make a tough decision. But as long as you're willing to make that decision, you usually are taking steps in the right direction.
Right. Absolutely. And so often we spend money, that on silly stuff when we could actually be investing it into our future. And so it's
definitely.
And you don't realize that until you actually look at your finances, right? And you start seeing, okay, I spend money on this and that. And I know even for myself, I spend a lot extra money, like for my dad, he wants to go out to eat and do this and that. And I think that if I cut that down and put it into a retirement fund, certainly would be far better. But you got to live life as it comes.
You got to live life too.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go with the flow and see what happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about, after divorce, like some of the things that we can do, like if you have a business and some of those things that you're thinking about doing, as you're moving forward in your life. So we'll talk about some of those things. Maybe you can shed some light on it for us when we have a business or we're thinking about going into business, those kind of things. So
absolutely.
Let's do that when we get back then. So everyone, we do have with us Randall G, Boston. He has a business right here in local Tampa Bay area. His phone number is 813-514-6147. You can reach him on his email, which is Randall, RANDALL at Boston, BOSTON, integrity, INTEGRITY, if I spell it right, .com. And his website is very easy to remember. It's bostonintegrity.com. So we want to make sure that you guys get that information. He's more than happy to help you kind of look at your roadmap and trying to put a plan together for you guys and see where your life is taking you. So that would be great to contact him. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's happening after divorce and how we can kind of help ourselves a little bit with that. And it will be just a moment, and we'll be right back here with WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Business Showcase. We're on the Business Lunch Hour. So just one moment.
You know your business needs.
Well, welcome back. This is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Business Showcase. We are on the Business Lunch Hour. And I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of Relationship Building and the president of Going Solo Network. And we have our wonderful guest here with us today. I'm just excited to have Randall here with us, Randall Boston. He is from the Tampa Bay area, and which is my hometown. So I am just thrilled to have one of our own right here on the Going Solo Network with us. He is a financial planner. We're talking a little bit about financial planning before and after divorce. We covered a lot, didn't we, at the very beginning of the show?
Definitely.
I was surprised how much we covered, and I was excited about touching on such a delicate subject, finances. I mean, a lot of people get a little bit worried about it. They get a little bit worried about it. And it's really not, if we have someone that we trust, like yourself, someone that we can talk to about finances, whether we're, in the pit of it or whether we're doing actually pretty good with it. If we can just kind of lay it on the table, say, listen, this is the way it is, kind of help me put together a plan. And then, and that's another thing I wanted to say is that sometimes you put together a plan, right? You have a bit of a roadmap of what you want to do. You've got a goal at the end of it, but sometimes that it gets deviated, right? Sometimes there's things that do come up, things that do happen. And I really think it just takes picking up a phone, calling you and say, hey, listen, I got this major thing happening in my life. It's touching on my finances. How can we work around this, And I think you could probably help and direct them, with that, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. That's something I can help with. And I'll tell you a quick story as far as planning goes. This is my favorite planning story to tell. Mm-hmm. When I was in the military still, I went to airborne school. We had this 3-week jump school in Georgia that we have to attend, and you have to jump out of a plane 5 times, right? And on my third jump, actually, apologize. On my third jump, super nervous, just didn't feel right. Felt like, something bad was going to happen, but you can't get off the plane, so what do you do? So sure enough, I jumped out of that plane. My foot got hung up on something. I think it was one of the static lines. And next thing I know, I'm hanging upside down, literally, as people continue to jump out the plane after me. And I'm looking up and seeing people jump over me. And finally, my parachute opened up, snapped off my helmet. And I'm thinking, well, what do I do now? I have to land without a helmet. The landings aren't what you imagine them to be, where people land softly and gently. This is a rough, tumbling landing, typically. So I was super afraid. I have no helmet, and I'm just thinking, how can I avoid getting a concussion? And that's where just repetition and training and basically having a plan in advance really helped. I wasn't afraid in the moment of, oh my gosh, what do I do when panicking? It was kind of like, okay, what's this next step? Okay, what's the next step? So when it comes to financial planning, it's really the same approach. If you're working with a financial planner, chances are, at least in my case, I'll say, I'm thinking about things that my clients haven't even considered as problems yet. So when they give me a phone call and there's something terrible going on in their life, I might have a solution already prepared for them. I might have some steps that are already ready to go as far as, okay, well, we didn't expect this, but here's what we do now. So certainly having a plan and a planner in your life could be the difference between a lot of stress and a lot of running around.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm glad you turned out to be okay after that, because I tell you, that is really, my heart would have been like, oh, wow, that's unbelievable. Well, let me ask you a question here. Should you really take the distribution from your retirement plan to pay off debt? So often people think they should take some money to pay off debt. Is that a good idea?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to paying off debt, I think that what people really consider is, hey, if I pay off all this debt, then I get rid of the monthly payments, right? They look at the monthly payment, and if I could get rid of that, then it's going to change everything in my life. Sometimes that is actually the case, right? So it might be a good decision in some cases, but more often than not, what I find is that whenever you have a windfall or you take a lump sum of money to pay off debt, you're usually not necessarily addressing, well, why you built the debt to begin with, right? At some point in time, you may have accumulated debt because you needed to make some purchases and you didn't actually have funds set aside in savings to take care of those purchases. So that's how you accumulated debt. So it's really, really important to make sure that you maintain some kind of emergency fund. So after a divorce, if you got some assets from it, there might be this instant temptation to just go ahead and pay off debt. I'll say that that should be a yellow. If you were looking at traffic lights, that would be a yellow light. Proceed with caution, kind of. It might be a good idea in some circumstances, but in many cases, it may not be. But when we look at paying off debt itself, what we really want to consider is what the interest rates on the debt is. I've seen people leave a divorce and basically pay off the mortgage completely. So now they have this house completely paid off, but not enough savings to take care of some other needs in their life. You can't, unless you're going to downsize the house, you really can't access that equity the way you would like to take care of your immediate needs. So there's certain circumstances where, paying off debt might not be the thing that really benefits you significantly or benefits you the most even. The other thing is when you have some people that, from the perspective of debt management, if I have no debt right now, it's like, oh, this is a green light to go ahead and accumulate debt, right? I could go and add stuff to the credit card because I don't have anything on the credit card right now. So for those types of people, if you know yourself to be that type of person, probably don't want to pay off that debt with a lump sum of money because you're just going to build it back up. And now you don't even have the savings to back it up later on,
Yeah. I totally get that. Now, what about estate planning? What would you say with regards to that? Should we, when we go through divorce, and I know we do say sometimes to people that this is time you maybe want to relook at your estate planning, update your documentation. But when we're looking at it from a financial planning standpoint, what would you say regarding that?
Yeah, definitely. So, pre-divorce, the way we look at estate plan is completely different because to some degree you're protecting your partner's interest as well. But I'll say post-divorce, since we're on that topic right now, it's really about, well, the family members that you want to leave a legacy for. So in this case, I'll just focus in on people with kids. chances are that all of your beneficiary paperwork in the past prior to the divorce had your spouse listed as the primary beneficiary. That's probably going to be something you want to make sure you update afterwards. For one, there were some law changes. I won't try to quote it, and I'll let my attorney friends address that for you specifically. But there were some law changes back in 2012, essentially, that made it such that your spouse, unless there was something specifically in the divorce agreement that addresses it, they can't be that. They won't receive the assets. So I actually had a family post-divorce, parent passed away. The spouse was listed as the beneficiary, the grandparent as the contingent beneficiary. Sure enough, the spouse wasn't allowed to receive the benefits anymore. Assets went over to the grandparent, and unfortunately, the grandparent decided that this was a windfall and went and bought a new house for herself versus taking care of the grandkids. So what I'm getting at is, after the divorce, it's definitely a time that if you haven't really addressed your estate planning, you absolutely want to make sure that that's one of the first things that you're looking at to make sure that your wishes are actually going to be carried out now that this divorce is finalized.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. And, and if you don't have anybody to leave your money to, I can give you the spelling of my name. No problem. No, but no, it's in all seriousness. It is truly important. We don't think about, death so much, or what's going to happen to us after we go. And so this is a good time when we're, redoing and starting to plan and put our lives together again. It's a good time to kind of look at all of that and look at it on a financial basis too, down the road. I think it's a very important thing. Let's talk a little bit about the terms of agreement, on the divorce agreement, following through on what the terms of the agreement is. Now, no one hardly ever talks about this. And I think that is so important, because you put this agreement together, you spend a lot of time hashing over it and all this kind of stuff. But then at the end of the divorce, that execution of that agreement needs to take place, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that has actually been very surprising for me personally. As I meet with clients, typically one of those documents that I'll ask for is to view the divorce agreement, just so I could understand what was supposed to be done and what was actually done. And many of the times there's always something that wasn't really addressed. And I think as I thought about it more, I think what it comes from is that the divorce process is so stressful that once it's finalized, you almost feel like you're already done, despite the fact that you're not, right? It's like, well, there's still some steps to take care of, but you feel like you're done, so you stop.
Yeah, but it's true. There's like, if you're going to be changing over, like on your retirement plans and your insurances, and so there's a lot of financial planning that needs to take place after after everything's all said and done, and making sure all of those things get put in place. And so I think your services are greatly needed then, for sure.
I feel I'm convincing myself more and more of that daily. I could say that much, Cece. Literally, I didn't really understand the value. I haven't gone through divorce myself. I didn't understand what it means for someone that really knows nothing about managing the finances to now have to work with all of these finance companies to split the assets in half, right? And make those phone calls and get the paperwork done and everything. And some of these companies are not as easy to work with as you might think, as I've learned with working with some of my clients, even challenging for me to get some of the things done. So I could only imagine what it might be like for someone, or what it must be like for someone to be in that predicament. Now they need to go and work with an ex-spouse that they just had a contentious divorce with, to call this finance company that won't talk to them to get assets that they need to have for their own survival, right, and for their own financial needs, and that they are entitled to based on the divorce agreement. It's a lot. And the one thing I can say to the audience today is, there are people out there to help you. I'm definitely one of them. Hand holding, I feel like, is my specialty now. And absolutely, don't feel like you have to take that burden on your own, is basically the main point of what I want to say there. But the second part of it is really to make sure you take action. So yeah, either seek help or do it yourself. But either way, you need to get that done as quickly as possible. I feel like the longer you let that go, the more difficult it's going to be to go back and work with some of these companies and work with the ex-spouse to get something done. So as soon as you can, just make sure that you understand once that divorce is finalized, make sure you carry out the terms in a divorce agreement. And I'm talking about things as far as splitting assets. I often see couples that, are supposed to split a 529 plan. That never gets taken care of. They're supposed to split retirement accounts. That usually gets taken care of because those are usually big pots of money. But other things like making sure that you have a life insurance policy on the spouse so that if they pass away, alimony obviously stops, and that way you would actually gain benefits from that life insurance policy, right? It's a lot easier to get done right after the divorce than 2 years later because you forgot to do it and your ex-spouse is wondering why you're trying to get out a life insurance policy on them, right?
Right. And making sure that's in place before you get the divorce too. So
absolutely,
this topic is very, very important. We talk about before and talk about after, and then we didn't even touch on the business aspect. Those that have businesses or looking into going into businesses, financial planning with regards to that is very crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think it's crucial, and business owners is a little bit of my soft spot. That's kind of my specialty and where I focus on working with people that are self-employed and that run businesses themselves. And it's because, I feel like for the W-2 employee, the government's, well, let me not say the government, but companies typically would have some kind of employee benefits, right? 401k plans, insurance policies, all of these things that you might be automatically enrolled for, or they might be free and available to you. For businesses, you don't have that. So when you initially start up a business, you're essentially trying to make sure that you have enough income coming in to cover your expenses. You're not thinking about adding expenses, right? That's what these things are. But what they also are a protection so that when things don't go right or when the unexpected happens, that you have some protection to take care of yourself. And also retirement planning as well, right? Making sure that you have that 401k plan or IRA account or some kind of retirement plan set up for yourself to save. So I would say for business owners, it's crucial from a protection standpoint to make sure you're working with a financial planner. Even if you feel like you're not ready for it yet and you just have an initial conversation, at least get some tips on what you should be thinking about. But the second part is really, from a motivational standpoint. So what I see typically happening with business owners is we push really, really hard to make sure we have enough income to cover whatever our expenses are. So if saving money and saving for retirement isn't really included in that expense, sometimes we get this comfort of saying, okay, well, we've accomplished what we want to accomplish in our business, but we really haven't yet. We aren't able to accomplish any of our personal goals, despite the fact that we've accomplished our business goals. And I think that's where financial planning comes in really handy, to marry that personal side of it with the business side to make sure that you're accomplishing what you're trying to do personally.
Right. Absolutely. That's great advice. Well, our time has gone by so quickly. So I want to again share with everyone how they can get a hold of you, Randall. So again, it's Randall Boston is his name. He's in the Tampa Bay area. He'd love to hear from you. His phone number is 813-514-6147. His email is Randall, RANDALL at Boston, BOSTON, integrity, INTEGRITY.com. His website is bostonintegrity.com. So again, that's BOSTONINTEGRITY.com. So make sure you guys reach out and let him know that you saw him here on the show. And, thank you so much for being with us here today. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Cece. It's been a pleasure talking with you as always.
It is great. It's absolutely great having you. So are there any closing words you'd like to leave with our audience today?
I'll leave with the words that you actually inspired me with today, which is, don't be afraid to face your problems head on. It might seem difficult. It might seem scary, but it'll be worthwhile in the long run. So definitely never be afraid of that. Our slogan at Boston Integrity Financial Services is think, solve, relax. So essentially that's a reflection of, by facing your problems, we'll put together the solution for you. And hopefully at the end of that, you'll have a relaxed state of mind and you'll feel like you've accomplished what you've wanted to accomplish. So.
Well, that's great advice. And I thank you so much for taking the time here with us today. So we hope we'll have you back on again. Maybe we can talk about something else. And we kind of give a broad range of information here, but we'd love to have you back on anytime. So thank you so much.
I'd love to be back. I'll be here anytime you want me to, Cece. Thank you so much for having me.
so much. It's great having you. All right, everyone. This is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. I am your host, Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of Relationships, and I'm also the president of GoingSoloNetwork.com. Our website is GoingSoloNetwork.com, so go and check it out. Everything that we're doing, our wonderful shows are right here on GoingSoloMedia.com, and we are going to be back here next week, so I'll see you then. Love you guys. Bye.